like
Oh, shit.
time Nomura was able to wriggle off the hook with 1:30 to go, and now they hold a favored position.
See, we're here.
The game here is to get up to full speed. Kayard makes his move first, and he'll be going faster when the gun goes off. Go down below the line. 20. 17. 14. 13. 4, 3, 2, 1, gun. Another clean start and another good job by Dellenbaugh.
What means this assault against the 18th Amendment? Oh, it's nothing under heaven but an attempt to bind and rivet the old breweries and the old distilleries around the neck of the American people for their own profit. Where will the money come from? They say that Uncle Sam will pay, they'll pay Uncle Sam $1,500 million in revenue. Well, where will it come from? Come from the pocket of the poor devil that drinks the stuff in the world. They say we need their saloons in order to bring back prosperity. Well, what does Germany need, and France and England to bring prosperity? Why don't they pay us what they owe us? The saloons are dead as an Egyptian mummy. She's too dead to skin. But her ghost hangs like a moral paralysis over our land, but no man, woman, or child alive today will ever live to see the stars and stripes wave over an open licensed saloon in the United States and of America. They say, well, people don't obey it, we'll repeal it. All right, then repeal the 10 Commandments. They don't obey them. And yet no law on the statute books is enforced 100%, and you know it. The distillery on the hillside now is still, and the men, they take their tipple from the ripple of the rill. The boys, they go home sober, and Mom, she don't cry. Glory, hallelujah, Uncle Sam will stay dry.
There is written in the Constitution of the United States that Congress has the right to coin, issue, and regulate the value of money. That's good Americanism, and it's good enough for me. Every politician today in the Democratic or Republican ranks who sits upon one of the thrones of the mighty doesn't believe in that part of the Constitution. They don't want to believe in that part of the Constitution. They believe that the Federal Reserve Bank has the right to coin and regulate the value of money. They're not even Americans, these so-called Democrats and Republicans. And so, Mr. Roosevelt, who was very loquacious in 1933 about driving the money changers out of the temple, is now bent upon another policy. I think driving the workmen out of decent annual wages.
Reverend Mesa, Reverend Rock, I'm grateful for your generous invitation to state my views. While the so-called religious issue is necessarily and properly the chief topic here tonight, I want to emphasize from the outset that I believe that we have far more critical issues in the 1960 campaign. The spread of communist influence until it now festers only 90 miles from the coast of Florida, the humiliating treatment of our president and vice president by those who no longer respect our power, the hungry children I saw in West Virginia, the old people who cannot pay their doctor's bills, the families forced to give up their farms, an America with too many slums with too few schools, and too late to the moon and outer space. These are the real issues which should decide this campaign. And they are not religious issues. For war and hunger and ignorance and despair, no religious barrier. But because I am a Catholic, and no Catholic has ever been elected president, the real issues in this campaign have been obscured, perhaps deliberately, in some quarters less responsible than this. So it is apparently necessary for me to state once again, not what kind of church I believe in, for that should be important only to me, but what kind of America I believe in. I believe in an America where the separation of church and state is absolute, where no Catholic prelate would tell the president, should he be Catholic, how to act, and no Protestant minister would tell his parishioners for whom to vote, where no church or church school is granted any public funds or political preference, and where no man is denied public office merely because his religion differs from the president who might appoint him or the people who might elect him. I believe in an America that is officially neither Catholic, Protestant, nor Jewish, where no public official either requests or accepts instructions on public policy from the Pope, the National Council of Churches, or any other ecclesiastical source.
Man, JFK would not be happy with the last couple of years, would he? He's pretty explicit about that. It was almost as if he gave us a checklist back in 1960 of all the things that have just happened in the last. It was almost like he was prophesying it. That's just terrifying. Like, no religious school would get public funds. It's like, oh, well, the Supreme Court literally just ruled the opposite way, John. So.
And also he was just so on point to what the sort of democratic core of this country is supposed to be, and we know how much they appreciated him for it.
Yeah, appreciated him a lot in Texas, didn't they?
Exactly.
Secular Rarity, Dr. J. Bundy, thank you for joining me. This is my 100th video I've posted up here.
Let's go.
Seems rather crazy.
That's amazing.
But we're here to talk, about the thing. And boy, you guys got right into it. I wanted to play just to keep our heads on straight a little bit of history. Starting with Billy Sunday, railing against legalization of demon rum, campaigning for prohibition and the maintenance of prohibition, because God commands it. And Father Coughlin, who got more mail than the President of the United States. People don't understand how popular that man was in the 1930s.
It was that snazzy little microphone holder he had.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
I want to bring that back. That was...
Yeah.
I just figured out how to get in the chat while I'm here. I'm so excited.
Oh, good for you. And finally, John Fitzgerald Kennedy, who had to answer questions. The group he was addressing was the Greater Houston Ministerial Association, mostly SBCs, Southern Baptists and Southern Methodists. And, talking to the mainstream Protestants, we'd never elected a Catholic in this country until JFK ran, and people were thinking he was going to be taking his messages from the Pope, when really it was mostly those guys who were preaching to keep religion in government. And I think a lot of us need to realize the reason that there's a First Amendment that prohibits the Congress from making any laws about religion is because of the diversity of religious belief in the 13 colonies. The Massachusetts Bay Colony was primarily Puritan, became Congregationalist. The Virginia colony was primarily Anglican. The Pennsylvania colony, Quaker. Maryland, explicitly Catholic.
Yeah.
Georgia, Methodist. There's a great deal of diversity of belief in the United States. And the people that wrote the Constitution and the first 10 amendments, the first 10 amendments were insisted on by Thomas Jefferson. It's like, we passed the Constitution, but we need to have these things spelled out. They realized the danger of establishing a church, especially the Puritans, especially the New Englanders, whose ancestors came here to escape the established church. They realized that it was that in order for the civil polity to function in a nation as religiously diverse as this one would be, there could be no establishment. There could be no integral binding of religion and government. And the people we're going to be talking about tonight seem to believe the exact opposite.
Yeah. And I wonder as to obviously the perspective, but I feel like there's got to be a serious rationalization involved, right? Because they know these things. They've had to observe the amendments in the Constitution and things like that. And so I think it's sort of the unique blend with populism, because it's kind of like, well, we can't say we want to make a Christian nation. Most of them, these guys are way past that point. But I think for a lot of people, they sort of think of it as, well, if most of the people are Christian, that's not a problem. And if most of the leaders are Christian, then that's not a problem. And I mean, and then if that just is the way people are voting, or that's, if we get enough political support, enough votes, right, for our particular preferences, there's somehow, there's a distinguished a difference there, I think, to these people.
Oh, totally. I think you're spot on. And there is an aspect there. So one reason that we're seeing Christian nationalism, uniquely right now growing in the US is because there is a persecution narrative. Excuse me. There is a persecution narrative in Christianity, right? Like, yes. Jesus himself even warns his followers. He's like, look, you come follow me. People are gonna hate you. They're gonna attack you. They'll fight you.
Yeah, he's prepping them for it.
Exactly. And so much of that warning around that time was very much focused on government, because that was kind of the biggest thing, right? The Roman Empire was running around fucking up everybody's shit, right? And taking people over and stuff. And Jesus was like, oh man, you know how much the Romans hate the Jews? They hate us more. And people were like, really? Do they? They don't really seem to be messing with us that much. And he's like, no, I swear, they hate us. And then over time, that just got transformed in people's minds as their background knowledge of just being, oh yeah, early Christians were hardcore persecuted by the Romans. And it's like, oh, no. The Romans didn't give a crap about this movement for 100 or so years. Then they killed him a little bit. Then they just made their whole empire Christian. So not really, didn't really play out the same way Jesus was saying, but yeah, I think
you know, it's his disciples push back to, wait a minute, we are Jews. Wait a second, what's the deal?
Yeah, that's why Luke
Hold
came
the
along.
phone.
Yeah, Luke came along.
You know, I think that if we want to go all the way back there, you know, religion and government have been intertwined since then. The Romans were rather ecumenical. It's like, you know, they'd go into a place, they'd go in somewhere, and it's like, oh, you guys have these gods? Fine, you keep these gods. They're kind of like ours. They get to Canaan, they get to Judea, and it's like, wait a minute, you only got one god? Well, that's okay. You can just have that one god. Just keep the people under control, okay? It's like, and the temple society under the Maccabees was a central focus of government. Herod the Great built the temple. The temple was built by the government to show off how great the government was. And so there's, you know, a big interconnection there, which is why the Bible, if you want to take the Bible literally, and these guys do, the Bible does advocate for the governance of the people being according to the laws of God.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, all the Abrahamic religions do. It is absolutely just a plain reading of the text. It would be absurd to think that the Bible, right, the inspired word from God himself, that would somehow give anybody the real indication of, you know what, y'all, if you just like me on Sundays, that's good enough. Honest, like Monday through Saturday, do whatever you want, be super secular, like have your drinks, you know, do your sodomy, no big deal. It's just as long as you come to church on Sunday. Me, God, I'm cool with that. No, absolutely not. Now, it's not as explicit. It's not as explicit as it is in the Quran. Right? The Quran is very explicit that, like, hey, no, the government does have to totally follow like Islam. It totally has to. It has to. Christianity is at least softer with it. But yeah, flat out. I think that's a very plain reading of the text. So anybody want to debate, you can always find me places. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, it's pretty clear, and you know, but we did have, and the Western tradition, we did have a thing called the Enlightenment. We did also have the Protestant Reformation. We also had, and that was sort of a battle between between getting sovereigns to adopt a particular outlook, a Lutheran outlook, or this or that, or in Henry VIII's case, it's like, you won't let me fuck this lady over here. Well, fuck you. I'm not, you know, I'm getting rid of this.
Literally. Literally.
I'm getting fucking married. Fuck the Pope. I am the defender of the faith. The Pope himself told me I was the defender of the faith. Who are you to tell me I'm not the defender of the faith? I want a fucking divorce. And so, hey, you get the Anglican Church, which is very Roman Catholic in its traditions. It's not particularly Lutheran at all in its theology.
Basically Catholic.
Yeah,
it really didn't change much.
But there was, as I say, in the American tradition, there was a break in the pattern of English settlement of North America, where all of these different sects, as England has gone through, they lopped off King Charles's head, and they had the English Revolution and Cromwell, and the Puritans controlled one side, and the Royalists it was basically kind of Protestant Catholic, sort of, kind of. and so the people that came here from England, the English that settled English North America, uh, there was a variety of belief.
Mhm.
I mean, the English are going, "Oh yeah, you Puritans, sure, you want us to get out of England? Great, go, and and settle in North America, convert the heathen, do whatever, just get the fuck out of here."
Right.
And so, but we wound up with this diverse structure.
Mhm.
And out of that came, along with John Locke, along with all of the Jean-Jacques Rousseau, all of the heroes of the European Enlightenment that happened to be taking place at that time, that did tend to separate the estates into the religious and the government and the people and the press, basically, the various estates. All that stuff was going on. The people we're talking about, I think, the Christian nationalists, the people we need to be very concerned about, are people that don't want to take us back to the 1950s. They want to take us back to the 1350s.
Oh yeah, yeah.
They want to go. It's Mike Johnson in an interview with the Daily Signal, I guess it is, which is the news site of the Heritage Foundation. So Mike is not alone in this. He's not alone in this at all. It says here in this article that who wrote this? Sarah Posner wrote for MSNBC, gave an interview to the Daily Signal, news site of the Heritage Foundation. Johnson was able to open up, as the Daily Signal's Mary Margaret Olson put it, about how his Christian faith informs his politics. Now, you didn't hear Jack Kennedy saying that his Catholic faith informs his politics. He was talking about the troubles of the nation in 1960. And while we can say whether being late to space is a big deal, what did seem to be at the time.
I don't know if there was anything else more important happening in the United States at the time. In 1960, I don't know if there was any other thing.
He was concerned about Cuba. He was concerned about the little trip that Dickie Nixon had when he went to Venezuela and got vegetables thrown at him.
Whatever.
Yeah, there was that going on too.
And I think we still have
this is a quote. This is a quote from Mike Johnson. It is a central premise of the Bible that God invented civil government.
Jesus is the foundation of Western civilization. You already know.
Oh my God.
But it's terrible. But look, that is who we just elected Speaker of the House.
That's true.
Yeah.
I mean, this thing is ascending, and something that's scary about a lot of these people, even relative to Trump, because I think they're definitely sizing up and trying to figure out who's next and what the future of all this looks like.
Yep.
I think they're looking for true believers, and Trump to me was opportunistic. He's just using the conservative evangelical movement because that was his path to power. Quite frankly, the only one he had. But the people that have risen to power, sort of riding that wave, are actually about that. That's their priority. That's their mission statement. That's what they intend to do. So it's very scary.
And
I wanted to go ahead, SR.
No, I just wanted to jump off of what Jay was saying, because and we've seen that pattern before, in my opinion. So, like, for instance, I know before all of our times, but history is a cool thing. You guys should definitely look into it. But Dwight D. Eisenhower right?
Not
Dwight D.
before my time.
he gets into power, right, off of populism that he garnered from his World War II fame. Okay, so he starts to ride that wave, and he sees that he's getting popular, and then somebody comes along and they go, "Hey, aren't you a Christian?" And an individual who, up until now, having many public chances to even mention Jesus or prayer at all, never frickin' mentioned it. No word whatsoever. And all of a sudden, oh my God, I'm the biggest Christian. Like, what do you want me to do? Communion? Cross myself? What do you? Is that too Catholic? I won't do that anymore.
Yeah.
Like, what do you want? And what does that eventually give us, right? So that wave that came through and started really bolstering that Christian fervor when it came to politics will eventually lead us to Ronald Reagan, right? Which, of course,
it
is blatantly obvious how Trump was just copy and pasting that. He literally used Reagan's slogan, you guys. Trump wasn't the first person to come up with "Make America Great Again."
Well, that wasn't Reagan's slogan. That wasn't Reagan's slogan. That goes back even further. That goes back to the America First movement, led by Charles Augustus Lindbergh.
Right.
That was basically pro-fascist.
And this is what we see. So it's like literally almost every 30 years. Okay. So you got in the 1920s, you got that stuff. Then give it about 30 years in the 1950s, you got Ike. Then in the 1980s, you get to Reagan, right? Then come around 2010 time, what do we get? The freaking Tea Party.
It's just long enough for people to sort of resign it to history and think it won't happen to them, and therefore forget it.
Yes.
I think though that what we're seeing right now is a particularly virulent strain in Christian Reconstructionism that comes out of if I forget the guy's name, Rushduni is his last name, but anyway, he came up with some stuff. This guy was a complete nutter. He hated gay people. He hated Jews. He hated black people. He hated everybody that wasn't lily white and Protestant. He didn't particularly care for the Catholics, but but the thing is, an illustrative of that is the Washington Stand, the news site of the Family Research Council. Now, let me tell you something about the Family Research Council. President of that organization is Tony Perkins. The Family Research Council and the Heritage Foundation, both of those organizations poured many, 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 many dollars into the campaign against trans people in the United Kingdom to get that whole thing going. They spent a lot of time and money making, bringing that whole issue to the fore. Anyway, the Washington Stand, the news site of the Family Research Council, in an article entitled "Johnson Critics Mistake Christianity." This article came out today, by the way. It's on MSNBC's website.
We're giving you the news, the right now news.
In an article entitled Johnson Critics Mistake Christianity, American Principles for Theocracy. Okay. The Stand, that Johnson critics mistake Christianity, American Principles for Theocracy. The Stand senior writer, Joshua Arnold, turned to the director of FRC's own, get this, Center for Biblical Worldview.
Right. So this is the Family Research Council, right?
How many times have we all heard these people, otherwise, I say saying Christian, but that seems like an oxymoron. Sit there and talk about worldviews. Oh, well, what's your worldview? How do you approach morality from your worldview? You can't approach morality from any other worldview than our worldview, because our worldview is the foundation of morality. You hear it
You
over
steal
and over
from
and
our
over again.
worldview, right? To have shoes. The
You're-
only way you have shoes is because of God. Like you couldn't have shoes without God. Like,
And that
it's a
particular
ridiculous
that
argument.
particular phrase is like buzzing for me right now, because I just saw him on an interview with Kayleigh McEnany. And she was basically kind of going over the same points. First off, she pretended that this is the first time she's ever heard Christofascism. Like she had never heard that term, she claimed. But what was interesting was when he was talking about these things, she kept saying our worldview. And so I was like, this is crazy that, again,
now
they're
you know
so
where she
deep
got
in
it from.
that they're just comfortable saying that as a well, it's a news entertainment show, but it was like, wow, to just go ahead and tell us where you're at like that. It was pretty alarming.
They're getting blatant, aren't they? I mean, they're like years ago at least they would like be quiet about it, they'd like, like when the relative, wants to say black, but before they do it, they like look around real quick.
Right.
And you're like, yeah, okay, it's a black guy. What's up? But like they used to say like, oh my gosh, America, the Constitution, we love the military. Big fans, want a smaller government, really want it to be Christian. Now they're just coming out. I mean, they're just coming out and just being like, oh no, it should be. Like, it's not a theocracy, because theocracy is bad. What we want is a government
we want good
that is ruled by a religion. And it's like, oh, that's the
it's a distinction without a difference, right?
Yeah, bro. What are you saying?
So let me. This is illustrative.
Oh, yeah, let's go for it.
Clausen defended Johnson's beliefs as, quote, This is David Clausen, Center for Biblical Worldview. A person, quote, a person exhibits a biblical worldview when their beliefs and actions are aligned with the Bible, acknowledging its truth and applicability to every area of life. Clausen defended Johnson's beliefs as, quote, just basic Christian belief coming right out of the Bible. That basic Christian belief, argued Clausen, includes that, quote, God is the one that ordains authority. God is the one that gives delegated authority to human beings to wield it on his behalf. Clausen went on to suggest that Johnson's critics are biblical illiterates who lack any understanding of Christianity. He describes them as, quote, folks who don't have any reference to what the Bible teaches, trying to scare millions of Americans when so many of us would just be saying amen.
Again, he literally said what I made a joke about. He literally was like, no, it's not that. It's not that. Like, it's not murder, okay? What I did was ended the life of a human for really no justification. Like, it wasn't self-defense, like wasn't even, honestly, wasn't even revenge. Just did it for fun. And it's like, yeah, that's murder, bro. Like, what you're talking about is murder. Like, so yeah, again, his response there is beautiful. Okay. I love this. You know why? Because people come up to me all the time and they say, man, you just deal with this stuff too much, So like I've got a real sensitive sensor, it just starts ticking. So at the slightest mention, and I go, oh gosh, you know what? You could be right. Maybe I'm straw manning. Maybe I'm just being hyperbolic here. Let me just go see what this fella says.
I gotta take care of something for Mikey Famine in the chat here. I'm gonna just
Okay.
Mikey, yeah.
Oh, he's trying to send a link.
He's trying to send a link. So, Mikey, you are a moderator.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I feel safer already.
Mod squad upgrade.
Yeah, absolutely. Antur showed up, and Antur's got to be a mod. There we go. All right. So all right.
Oh, go ahead, Steph. Let's keep going with the article.
Yeah. Well, this goes on to say that there's a lot of good stuff in this article. While these views are, if anything has come into sharper focus over the past week or so, it's that Johnson has spent his legal and political career immersed in an insular world where everyone around him believes that there are certain truths like regressive gender roles or creationism, or that separation of church and state is a myth, or, as Johnson stated this week without equivocation, God invented civil government.
That's
right.
That's great.
Right.
The separation of church and state is a myth thing is really funny because it's like, it's not a myth. At the very least, it's like a concept. So that would be kind of like saying that, like, I don't know, like not eating a bunch of candy before bedtime is a myth. And it's like, what do you mean it's a myth? Like, it's a concept. It's like if you eat a bunch of sugar before bed, like it might be disruptive.
What's going on with all of this is it's the language of the wink wink and the nudge nudge, and in this case they call it Christianese, but this is sort of the political side of the Christianese, and a lot of it to me is reinforcing sort of their inner language and then like giving them the updated language, right, when they need to have something new. And so for this, there's been a lot of that, like where the principle of separation of church and state is a myth, and you hear that, and so it's almost like if somebody says like, well, have you heard of the Kalam, right? Like you just know where this is gonna go. You know they got that from some bad apologist. You can probably name said bad apologist, right? And this is like the political version of that. Like they know that when challenged on, their weird desire to control the government in the name of the church, it's like, well, the separation of church and state is a myth, right? And that's the talking point that he's like reinforcing there.
That's a good point. That's a very good point.
Yeah, and that this ties into this article. And by the way, Mikey, thank you so much for posting the link in the chat. I really appreciate that. While these views are commonplace on the Christian right, they're far from commonplace among Christians more broadly. That is true. Most Christians wouldn't say that this is a central premise of the Bible, but Johnson's focus on authority, right? This is the Speaker of the fucking House.
Right.
As well as the way he distinguishes civil government from other forms of government, tracks with the language of Christian Reconstructionism. Julie Ingersoll, religious studies professor at University of North Florida and author of Building God's Kingdom Inside the World of Christian Reconstruction, told me, as Ingersoll's work has illuminated Reconstructionism, a movement developed in the 1970s by R.J. Rushdoony, who's a nutter, teaches that God ordained separate spheres of governmental authority. The family, so there's governmental authority, the family, the church, and civil government. In the Reconstructionist view, civil government should not do anything that interferes with families or churches, specifically Christian families or conservative Christian families or churches. or what they consider to be their inviolable right to impose their religious beliefs in the public square. And that is Rushdoony.
Yeah.
Right there.
Yeah.
And that's Christofascism.
Rushdoony,
Yeah.
right. Rushdoony cited, supposed biblical law to support slavery and the death penalty for homosexuality. And somebody in the chat mentioned the Project 2025. This is it.
Yeah.
And a member of that team is now the second in line to the presidency.
And
I was telling people in 2018 this was coming when they came after me and my rights. And people were saying, well, we have your back, Steph. Don't worry. We have your back. I'm saying, no, you don't understand. They're going to be coming for you. At the moment, my back is against the wall. You should be looking at the firing squad and stop saying you have my back and stop offering me a last cigarette because they're coming for you, and they are.
Yep.
Yeah. If you think you won't be the next demographic and then they came for the quote.
Right.
If you don't think you're the next demographic, you've completely misunderstood that quote, by the way. It's just worth pointing that out.
Right.
And just real quick, I wanted to say this because you brought up such a phenomenal point, Stephanie, about, that this has been something that has been coming. Mikey brought up Project 2025. These are people that are motivated and they have a plan. And I want to bring everybody back to a time. Okay. I want to bring everybody back to a time that feels so long ago, right? Right before January of 2017, when Donald Trump was sworn into office and had his face permanently positioned next to like 44 other people that have run this country. Okay. It's just sad. Really was happy. I know this is dumb, but I really was happy that Joe Biden was elected right after, because Donald Trump essentially lost his only real claim to fame, which was that he was the oldest ever elected president. Now he is the only Republican president since HW for a while to not be reelected. So that just makes him look like more of a loser. That's just a personal, that's a personal fun thing for me. It's you lost. But anyway, okay. So I want to bring you back to a time, folks, when Donald Trump was getting all the headlines, right? And everybody was really upset and we were worried and we had our concerns and all this stuff, okay? And then there was a small voice that started to get amplified a little, but we forgot about it really, really quickly. Unfortunately, I worry. But that small voice was saying, there's a little bit of hope here. There's a little bit of hope here. And that hope is the simple fact that Donald Trump is inept as a human being. He's not capable of finishing a thought, much less a fully thought out plan, right?
Right.
The scary part is that Mike Pence is.
Mm.
And if Donald Trump were to not be in office anymore for some reason during his term, we would get somebody who is actually worse, because he is just as horrible in what he wants to do as what Donald Trump says, but Mike Pence could actually do it. Okay. So that's Mike Johnson, you guys. That's
right,
Mike
Pence
Johnson.
dropped out and we got Johnson in the speakership.
There you go. There you go. So that's what we have. And just as a quick little background for everybody, I just think this is great. It's wonderful in case anybody wasn't sure. So Johnson, for about 8 years, served on the Ethics and Religious Liberty Commission of the Southern Baptist Convention. So in case anybody is super interested about that, it will only be about 8 years after he's not on that Ethics and Religious Liberty Commission, only about 8 years, that the Southern Baptist Convention will publicly admit and release a list of hundreds of their members.
Glad you brought this up.
That sexually abused people, children,
Wow.
for years. So for 8 years, Johnson sat on a committee that never once called those people out, despite when the report will come out almost a decade later, they will admit to knowing it the whole time. That's just an interesting little fact. Maybe it doesn't tip the scale for some people. That's fine.
Incredible.
Here's another one. Here's a great one. I love this one. This is awesome. So Johnson, for a long time, had a legal career. He was, in fact, the senior legal counsel, not junior, senior legal counsel for an interesting little nonprofit some of you may have heard of, called the Alliance Defending Freedom. The Alliance Defending Freedom,
another one,
wrote an amicus brief in a 2003 Supreme Court ruling. I don't know if we remember, there was a period of time the Supreme Court actually did make right decisions, and they did on this one. But just so you know, Johnson was on the side of supporting laws that criminalize homosexuality. That's what he wrote to the Supreme Court.
ADF's another organization. Yeah.
ADF is the organization that was at the forefront of the Masterpiece Cake Shop case, of this recent case where the lady just out of nowhere was like, oh, I don't want to make websites for gay people. Like, can't I just tell people that up front? And a lot of people were like, oh, that sounds like discrimination. It sounds like you're just discriminating. And she's like, no, I'm just being religious. And it's like, yeah, those aren't mutually exclusive. You said
a brief aside on that one. If you're a bit of a legal beagle, it's like, in that case, she had never made a wedding website at all.
Absolutely.
Oh, yes, I remember this.
That is,
her business was entirely, it was as fake as the hypothetical that she posed, and the Supreme Court took the case. It never happened to anybody. No harm was done to anybody. They made up the guy that supposedly made an inquiry, and they reached the guy. The press found out, oh, who is this guy? They looked into it. They found the guy that they were talking about, and the guy said, I'm fucking straight. I'm married. I'm like, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
Like 15 years of my life. I mean, I don't have a.
That was a great story, actually.
So if you think it's just Mike Johnson, no, these people, that the Federalist Society, Americans Defending Freedom, these people are all in on the Rushdoony racism, homophobia. The Bible is the basis for government entirely, and and the ultimate paragraph, the final paragraph of this is absolutely spot on. These kinds of crude dismissals of Johnson critics serve two purposes. Somebody in the press writing this, or somebody writing this, is just wonderful. I hope people wake up. Serve two purposes. They reassure the GOP base that their, quote, biblical worldview is the only correct way to view both the Bible and the government, and that any critiques of it evince a lack of, quote, understanding of just basic Christian tenets, as Clausen put it. Second, and more crucially, they aim to bully reporters and political opponents into retreating from examining Johnson's record and drawing attention to the way it threatens pluralism, democracy, and the rights of others.
Yep.
By repeating the lie that Johnson's beliefs are basic Christianity and accusing anyone who fails to understand that of ignorance, the Christian right and the Republican Party it controls, make no mistake, it does control, the Republican Party, wants scrutiny of Johnson to evaporate. We can only hope their efforts will backfire as millions of Americans wake up to what this really means to have a top government official proudly tout his supposedly biblical worldview.
It is literally, and that described it so well. It is cut and paste the exact same tactic that the TERFs and the gender criticals use, right? It is the exact same tactic that racists and anti-Semites use. It is the exact same tactic, right? Because you're just attacking me. You know, why are you just calling me names like transphobic or sexist? And it's like, oh, well,
Right.
you just literally said that women are like inferior to men. You just literally said that. Again, that's just the definition of sexism, bro. Like,
Right.
hit up Webster.
There's another really important point that I don't want to skip over, and I think I think it's super important. There are objections to abortion and marriage equality, for example, is based on their claim that civil government lacks the God-ordained authority to create laws that they say conflict with the Bible. They also consider public education to be an improper, unbiblical exercise of government authority. Because of that, they have undermined public schools, going into libraries, picking out books, created their own Christian schools and advocated for and shaped the Christian homeschooling movement. And there's money in it. They want to turn all of this over to the churches and to the conservative businessmen who will turn education in America into something molded along the lines of exactly what they wish to see. This is an assault on the character of a nation that built its strength in diversity, that built its strength in a commitment to public education, built its strength in building one of the best educational systems in the world. And we're losing that. We are losing that. People used to come from all over the world to study at our institutions of higher education. They're not doing it anymore.
Right.
Because of xenophobia, because of this kind of assault on Enlightenment principles that these people represent.
See, I think
they hold the whip hand right now. That's what's scary to me.
I think we've touched on a bunch of important things, and I think it starts with the fact that the Bible itself, because of the unique historical context in which those stories happened in, does have that struggle versus the empire baked into the faith. And then I think the history in this country of sort of co-opting the populist movements that have happened, and then at the same time, what we're dealing with right now, I think, is uniquely evangelical Christianity. And I think even though we still have a ton of religious diversity in this country, the sort of, it's not just the scale of which Christianity dominates the other religions, it's the particular type of Christianity that dominates all the others. And I think most of us have grown up with it, even to the extent of like the charismatic movement, the mega churches, the faith healers, all of that stuff is very conservative at its core. It always had these sort of conservative, strict biblical adherence, biblical literalism. All of those things were baked into it. And that's, I think, a lot of the Christianity that people grew up with and generally felt good about. We went to church, we had great worship, we did the bake sales and all of that.
Right.
They didn't realize the message that was really at the heart of that. And now it's causing all these problems. And I always say we're trying to fight Christian nationalism with Christianity, and it's not gonna work.
Yeah, it isn't, because you're totally right, because this is the, again, a huge problem with the Abrahamic faiths in and of themselves. But we see this in other religions as well. This is throughout, Hindu scripture, don't get me wrong, but like it's when you're standing there, right, as a moderate Muslim, you're standing there as a peace-loving, bring everybody in Christian, right? When you're doing that, and then the person next to you is also a Christian or Muslim, and they just go, "Oh, hang on a second, let me just open the book real quick." It says here, that the people that control us are there to enact God's law. That just literally says that. Like, there's no interpretation necessary.
Right,
It's the words. And you can't argue against that as a moderate believer. You can't. You cannot, because it is the actual literal understanding of what's being said. You can spin it all day, man. We
Exactly.
see the apologists do that, man. How many times does Frank Turek get up there and take a sentence and twist it into so many damn knots you don't even know where it started anymore, right?
Yeah.
But the literal words on the page say, your government must follow me, God, Allah, Yahweh, done. That's it. Period. End of sentence, you guys.
Yeah.
And so, you cannot fight that by trying to have a watered down version of the thing that ultimately still says, hey, kill everybody that's not on your team. It's like, there's nothing, you don't win by just going, it doesn't mean kill. It means like metaphorically kill. Kill them with kindness. That's what it means. It's like, no, that doesn't work. That will not work. And just to go back to what you were saying, Stephanie, because I always have a chip on my shoulder about this particular topic, and I'm glad you mentioned education as being a major front for the Christian nationalists. I mean, Betsy DeVos just straight up said it. Like, that chick didn't even try to hide it. Like, she's just standing there with a bunch of cameras, a bunch of elected officials in a public government building, broad ass daylight, super proud of herself. And she's like, oh, schools are supposed to teach God's word. Yeah, we're all on board with that, aren't we? But just to remind everybody of the crappy situation that is Tennessee, technically still a state in the union, but for how much longer, whoever knows, honestly, could just totally collapse tomorrow. The hospitals are closing. That's not a joke, you guys. Our hospitals are closing. Our bridges are collapsing. And it's because instead of putting money into things like that, no, folks, our wonderful governor whose claim to fame is an HVAC company that I'm pretty sure like his dad started, but that doesn't matter. The point is, our wonderful governor Bill Lee has decided instead the right move is for the state of Tennessee to get like deep nasty in bed with a Christian nationalist charter school.
Wow.
From Ohio. So it's called Hillsdale Charter.
Oh my God, not those assholes. Holy shit.
It is. Like, it's the exact worst people. Like, it's like when your buddy calls you and is like, hey man, I just want to let you know I'm coming over to the party, gonna be a little late. I'm gonna bring a friend, just giving you a heads up. You always have that person in mind that you're like, please don't let it be that guy. Just anybody else but him. Because
anybody but Kevin.
Right. And here's fucking Kevin busting through the door. Like, oh my gosh, 100 new charter schools in Tennessee. Bam! Yes, we'll do it. And also, just again, real quick, just because this was literally posted like, I don't know, a couple of days ago, like really not that long ago, you guys. We had a candidate in a town very close by here called a candidate called Gabrielle Hansen. She was running for the mayorship of a little town called Franklin, Tennessee. Now, here's the good news. She didn't win. Some would say in part because of the literal Nazis that showed up at her rallies that she openly supported. Some would say that was part of the reason. Others would say it was just because even without that, all of her policies were just batshit crazy. So you take your pick. Here's the headline, guys. Here's the headline, because she contested this election, sort of. God's candidate for mayor? ? Critics say new Gabrielle Hansen video shows rise of Christian nationalism. And boy, does it. Boy, does it.
Shit.
This is what's happening. And again, if you go back to the understanding of what like Project 2025 is and other projects that have existed, right? What's the one? The American Legislative Exchange Council was an organization that, like, since the mid 90s has been just writing bills that are just hardcore conservative, hard fucking core conservative. If you think of the bills that became laws in the southern states before the overturning of Roe v. Wade that restricted abortion to its absolute ridiculous degree, they were written by ALEC and they were passed around. Okay.
Right.
And so again, this is something that they're doing on purpose. They're going after school boards on purpose. They're going after aldermen. They're going after the things that everybody's like, I know that a comptroller exists, but I truly cannot tell you who it is or what they do. It's going to be a Christian nationalist unless you pay attention. Because again, this person got very close. Now, I will say this. The Republican Party of Middle Tennessee, of that area, did come out with a public statement saying that they were against Gabrielle Hansen. Now, technically the reason that they were against her, no joke, you guys, the public statement, technically the reason that they cited is they felt like she was bad for voter turnout for the Republicans.
Yeah.
Not that they had a problem with the white supremacy. Not that they were like, oh man.
You need to dig a little bit below the surface. Like,
no.
Why
the problem
is she bad for voter turnout? Because she's got fucking Nazis all around.
There you go. There you go. There you go. That's it. It's literally like it's literally they
just
were like
scratch a little bit.
We just think if she wins and she keeps calling herself a Republican, we just kind of feel like people will think bad thoughts about us as Republicans. And it's like,
have you the baddies?
What? Exactly.
Well, that's kind of like we were talking about, this problem of trying to fix Christian nationalism with Christianity is they've never really examined the character of the faith. They're so brainwashed, quite frankly, into assuming that they're always the good guy in the room, that they don't realize that the person who's saying the things that we find abhorrent is just going with the plain reading of the book. They're just going with the plain reading of the text. I know there's so many people, like if you asked most Christians, like they've never processed the amount of murdering that God does in the Bible. They've never processed that there's a handbook on slavery. They've never processed the marrying of a rape victim to their assault, the person who assaulted them. I mean, this is just it's not a good book. I mean, and the big overarching gospel is a horrible, terrible message, right? This sacrificing of your son to pay for other
No,
people's
it's
sins or
beautiful, Jay.
whatever. It's
How do
just
you not see the beauty? It's so beautiful.
yeah, it's
I hope to one day sacrifice my own child for people.
it's wild.
Yeah, the problems with Christianity are multitude, and we certainly don't have the time to get into them there. And we probably have gotten into them in other venues, in other situations,
Yeah.
either on call-in shows, arguing with people, or whatever. But here, I just want to. Here's, to me, what we've got going on right now is a 5-alarm fire when it comes to American politics. And if there are Christians that want to help put out the fire, I'm not going to turn them away. I'm not going to try.
Sure,
I'm not going to
sure.
try to. I'm
I
not going to. I'm not going to. I'm not going to try to say, oh well, your faith sucks. It does, but
Right.
It's Uncle Bobby says it very, very well. Show me show me what kind of Jesus you got, and I'll think he's okay. I think, people make up their gods. As a fundamental principle,
Right.
people make up their gods. And it's funny how closely they resemble those people.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say Mark Johnson is one hateful little son of a bitch. He doesn't like gay people. He doesn't like all of these things. And he blames it on God because he's got God and he's got the text to back him up. He'll find the text to back him up. Somebody else will have compassion and be generous to everybody, and they'll find the text to back them up. And to me, in all of these discussions I've had, and I've been around in various degrees of visibility in this community for a very long time. It always comes down to I care less about what you believe. I mean, from a philosophical argumentation basis, we can go on for hours and hours. Let's go, why do you believe what you believe? That's fine and it's fun. But at the bottom line, it's what do you do with that belief? How do you behave with that belief? Yeah. What does your belief call upon you to do? And in the case of Mark Johnson, in the case of many of these people who have worked their way through diligent effort over a very long period of time, what their belief calls them to do is undermine liberal democracy everywhere in the world, not just here, everywhere. That's the question I think is most critical. And how do we deal with that? Because we all have fun arguing with atheists about this and that and this and that. And to me, it's getting down to the core. You believe in God, that's great. What does God call upon you to do? God calls upon you to be helpful, to be kind, to be generous, to support people who aren't like you, to see the God in the other person, to really commit to the bit that's about the siblinghood of humankind. You commit to that bit, we're fine.
Right.
But if your God calls upon you to be a nasty son of a bitch, then I don't like you very much, and I sure don't like your God. And you're not making a hell of a good case for the existence of that God by saying, well, I believe in this guy who likes to slaughter people. It's like, no, I don't think so.
Yeah. I think you said it really
in those arguments. I tend to get exasperated when somebody's just dancing around the edges and making the case that God must exist, when really they need that God to exist to
justify
the
Yep.
horrible behaviors that they
Yep.
are willing to undertake.
Yeah, I think my issue with most Christians is again, it comes back to this idea of like the sphere of influence. And unfortunately, I think a lot of Christians put the love your neighbor as yourself part of Christianity up front in their personal interactions.
Yeah.
But I don't think they think through that in terms of their institutional interactions, who they vote for, you know, what church they go to, are they financially supporting that church? What is that church doing with that financial support? I think these are where the problems come in. And I've, you know, I know people that have gone through this tension that, you know, I think they're good people and they sort of realize there's a lot of people in their church that have very problematic views and, you know, they're not so sure what they've signed up for. But I think that's the problem, is that unfortunately, the bigger the organization, it seems the more leverage they have. And with a lot of that leverage, they tend to go hardcore into the sort of fundamentalist kind of conservative outlook. Because that would be the next step, right, Steph?
Yeah.
Like, you're not personally threatening me, and that's good. And now let's, you know, think through and make sure you're not doing unintended harm through the organization.
Well, you hit on another great point, Jay. You hit on another awesome point, honestly, because that is what you just described is truly indicative of Christianity and religion as a whole, right? So a lot of times whenever I talk with people about like my stepping away from, you know, belief, right? My stepping away from Christianity and stuff, what my story is different from a lot of people, because for a lot of people, especially in this space, you hear a bit more of a a trauma, just religious trauma, right? That's why Marlene Winnell coined the term, right? So, but like for me, where I was I was so bought into the thought-stopping cliches. I did not go further because there wasn't a need to go further, because the answer to everything was Jesus. There's no question.
Yes.
Why are you concerned? What are you concerned? What, take the job, don't take the job? Did you pray about it? Like marry them, don't marry them. Did what did God say?
Right,
Like,
right.
and so you're absolutely right. There are so many individuals out there with a religious mindset who have just stopped exactly where they're supposed to in those arguments, right? Somebody comes up to you and you go, "Hey man, I don't really know that I believe in God. Is there like anything you could point me towards?" And they go, "Oh, look at the trees." There's not supposed to be a discussion further. That's supposed to be the end of it, right? Like you come up to somebody and you go, you know, "Hey, I was thinking about this, and you said like God is like nice and all, right? And he cares about us. But then there's this stuff that seems really bad. Why didn't God do anything?" And it's like, "Oh, mysterious ways." Again, you're not supposed to have any follow-up to that.
Right.
And that's exactly what prevents them from going deeper into saying, like, hey, what's it? Love the sinner, hate the sin, right? Hey, that's awesome. That's great, man. That's right. That's how you do it. By the way, I really think we should pass laws to criminalize people if they're not straight. And it's like, okay, so do you see how those are in contradiction? But no.
Yeah.
Of course they don't, because they've stopped thinking. That is why critical thinking is so deeply important. Absolutely. You know, I think, hey, the world would be better if nobody had faith in a God. I do think that. That being said, I think that's actually a byproduct of critical thinking, right? Liberalism and secularism.
Yeah.
I think it's a byproduct.
Has to come first.
Right, exactly. All that other stuff is so deeply important. And again, just to go back to what you said, Stephanie, I totally agree. about being able to recognize who is truly on our side in some of the most important fights right now. And I'm just gonna shill some of your stuff because I just freaking loved it. I don't know if y'all have seen the video where Stephanie gives a speech at a church, but it is so worth it. You need to go watch that, and you need to pay attention, because so often in this space, especially when we talk about something as serious and as infuriating as Christian nationalism and people like Mike Johnson becoming,
Steph, is that the first video? I think it might be the first video. So
yeah, I think so.
So maybe we've just tied the whole history of the channel up right there.
That's good. Okay, that's good. That was totally unintentional. But I'll take it. I'll pat myself on the back till I break my wrist tonight. But what's so important right now is for those of us that truly value the ideas that have progressed society to the paltry state that it is now. We've made so much progress, but like, if you think we're done, you got a lot to catch up on, but that's okay. At least you agree we have made progress. That's at least good. But if you truly want to continue that progress, we cannot burn the bridges with the religious who stand up louder than us and say, that's not my God. That's not my Jesus. I don't agree with. Those people are on our side when it comes to passing legislation, when it comes to making sure that we don't vote in individuals who literally have a young earth creationist view that defended answers in Genesis in court.
Yeah, I was gonna mention that yeah.
Yes, he was their legal counsel defending whether or not like they had to pay more money, and their argument was, well, we make all of our employees sign a statement of faith that like says they believe in young earth creationism, so like we're good, it's nonsense, you guys. But again, as frustrating as it may be, and as much
but
as
people need to think about that, Ken Ham's lawyer is now the Speaker of the House.
He could be president just by happenstance. He could be president just by happenstance, folks.
And
that is
don't you
scary.
think? I hate to say it, but don't think that people in that sphere aren't thinking about that.
Oh, of course they are. Of course they are. And that's the other thing. That's
how to make it happen. That's the
stochastic terrorism that's been performed time and time again. The wink wink nudge nudge.
And there's also the sort of the roadmap of he's there, and what happens is, they still think they have a sizable electoral base, and then we're going to see what happens with Trump, but we're going to need somebody who can combine the sort of traditional Christo-fascist wing of the party with the MAGA wing of the party. And he's looking like
he's a good candidate.
Yeah, he's a good candidate. And then the fact that he was, the Speaker of the House, that just automatically fast tracks him to that conversation.
And if I can, I know, guys, normally I think if you hang out with the three of us, that we do this kind of like build you up, tear you down type thing where we have a good time, we have fun and we laugh and we grow together as a family, but then also we go like, all right, so pay the fuck attention. This is deeply important. So let me scare you just a little bit, you guys. Let me scare you a little bit, which is this. Mike Johnson, Mike Johnson announced his candidacy for the 4th congressional district seat in the House of Representatives on February 10th, 2016. He ran unopposed.
Wow.
Johnson then stayed in office that whole time, you guys. He's been in office for 8 years? He's been in office for 8 years. This guy has been actively making laws. He has been actively voting on everything.
And showing up at the prayer breakfast and doing this networking.
We didn't know about
making
him.
all the connections.
We didn't know about them.
And now.
And that's the real scary part, you guys, is that there is so much unsexy, headline grabbing, million freaking views on TikTok. There is so much that is going on that is very much behind the curtain on purpose. Because, like, you know what? If we just start putting people on the school board, then we can just take all the books out of the library. We don't ever have to teach kids about any other thing but God, because we're the ones passing the laws. So Mike Johnson is not the only person like this in our government. In our government right now, I guarantee you, wherever you're watching from in the United States, you've got somebody like this in your state house, your state senate. I guarantee it. Pay attention.
Yeah. So we're at an hour and 20 minutes, and I know. Sorry,
I had said an hour
initially. An hour.
I was having such a great freaking time. We were on a roll. Like, you guys had just said, you both had just said really great things, and I was like, I gotta say something smart now.
Well, I just want to, before we go, I just want to thank you both for coming on, and really appreciate it.
100 episodes
for the 100th video.
Yes, congratulations, Steph. Congratulations,
and absolutely everybody in the chat. Thanks so much for stopping by. Tell your friends. I have this little channel. I try to do what I can, where I can, when I can, and I need you to do the same. Do what you can, where you can, easy. When you can. Have your own back. Look to your own interests, because if you do, I think you'll probably have mine too. Because I think of you when I make my choices in voting, and I hope you will think of me, and I hope you will think of your neighbors. I think that government, contrary to the philosophy that these people preach, is something we do as people. It's the fundamental notion of this nation is that people make the government, not gods. Not God. Not any particular God. John Adams, in one of the first treaties that the United States of America signed with the Barbary states of basically Tunisia, what's now Tunisia, was like, we don't have any objections to we have no gripes against the Muslim religion. We're just a people that are trying to establish diplomatic relations. And it served us well for 200 years plus. Yeah. We're the oldest republic. We're the oldest Republican democracy. We're the oldest Republican constitutional democracy on the planet. And it's up to us to keep it or pitch it. And the only way we pitch it is to let the people who believe in a different system that was practiced for thousands of years before 1789. Take over and turn us into a feudal state or a early modern state again. You want the Inquisition? keep voting for these guys. You don't want the Inquisition, vote them out of office. The only way. And that goes for the, as SR was saying, it goes at the alderman level, at the school board level, at the local level. Don't sit around and wait for somebody else to do it. Get involved. You have to. This is 5-alarm fire.
Yeah. And
get your Christian friends to do the same.
It's
SR, shill yourself. Concluding remarks, then then shill yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, first off, just thank you so much, Stephanie. I'm absolutely honored to be here on the 100th episode. I was lucky enough to get to meet you in person, a while ago at Better. That was awesome. We had a great time. I love hanging out with you and chatting with you, of course. Dr. Bundy, man, I'm so happy to be on screen with you. Instead of just kicking you off. That was our first meeting. Our first meeting was me just coming on and just being like, get the fuck out of here.
Yeah, exactly. But you did a great job that night. I said you had a very tough gig that night, and appreciate your work. Yeah.
Thank you. I lurk so much, checking you out and everybody hanging and seeing you and Uncle Bobby get together and stream. I just freaking love your shit, man. So I'm thrilled to be here.
Appreciate it.
And seriously, this is a really, really important topic, you guys. And, one of the reasons I think the three of us do use levity and humor is because it is so heavy. It is such a difficult topic to really internalize and research. And like 5 minutes of looking at this shit, guys, I just read a paragraph from the Wikipedia page. Like, you want to go in depth on Johnson's backstory? You're gonna need some time and probably some substances.
Yes.
I mean, seriously, it's gonna bum you out. Okay? It will. The good news is this is the good news, you guys. Seriously, truly, there is a way out. Like, there just is, and it takes just a little bit. Not even that much, you guys. Not even that much. Elections don't happen that often. Okay. You do have enough time to very basically research these people, to find out who their political sponsors are, to find out what their ideology is and their goals when it comes to being in public office. You can do that. It does not take that long. It is absolutely possible. And I really, really encourage everybody to do that. It is one of the most basic yet important fucking things about being in a democratic society, about having a government founded by we the people. It is one of the most basic yet important things. Okay. So please take part. Please pay attention to what's going on. And again, absolutely get your friends involved. Like, be that asshole that is like, oh man, hey, did you guys know that an election's coming up in August? Are you guys registered to vote? Because the last day to register to vote is like in March. Are you registered to vote, man? No, I'll do it later. No, come on, man, register to vote. You know that dickhead that just got elected? Let's get him out. Like,
yeah.
Please do that.
Definitely.
And then just real quick, so it just so happens this Sunday, November 5th, I will be on Atheist Experience with Armin Navabi. I'm very, very excited. Nice. He and I hang out over on Atheist Republic Wednesdays, at normally at 10 Central Time. And so we've been talking about some wild stuff lately. Unfortunately, there are a lot of people out there really advocating for genocide. It's a frustrating time, you guys. Yep. But that being said, I'm going to be hanging out AXP, and then actually later on Sunday, I will be on Skeptic Haven with Brentley, the punk apostate, I think is his name. Mm-hmm. Love Brent. I'm super excited to be hanging out with him again. So I'm really, really, again, I'm really thrilled to be here hanging out with you two, and I'm so fucking honored.
Let's do it again.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's
Thanks
do it
so much
again.
for coming, man. So for me, the one thing I think that I've sort of observed with this Mike Johnson guy and his wife too is it feels like a lot of times we are afraid of people who have their legitimate political resumes for whatever reason, and then we start to understand they have these ideological bents that are problematic. What bothers me about these people is those problematic ideological things are their credentials. Like this is their resume. This is their CV, right? Like this is how they got to where they're at, and that's scary compared to even the average Christ of fascist in government already, right? Like this is a new breed of I got here on this. And yeah, I'm at Pocket Locker 86, and love having everybody in the gang in the chat. Appreciate you guys. Secularity's awesome. Glad we did this, and you gotta hang out. I gotta have you over on my channel. Absolutely. And Steph, thank you so much for having me on your 100th episode. Congratulations, well deserved.
Thank you. One last thing I just want to say, you might be noticing the ecclesiastical background.
It did look a little churchy. I mean, I wasn't gonna call you out, girl, but
no. This is the sanctuary of the church I grew up in at 85 Shawmut Avenue, Boston, Massachusetts. It is now underneath the Massachusetts Turnpike. It's long gone. It's been gone since 1962, I think. But it was a beautiful sanctuary, and my grandfather and my father were pastors in this church. This is a church I grew up in, so I thought that I thought it was appropriate to speak ex cathedra on the on the topic of Christian nationalism, because my own values are not biblically based, but the values that I learned, the values of service, the values of brotherhood, sisterhood, siblinghood, were values that I first learned in this space. And I got to play the organ. It was fun. As a little kid, I didn't get to play it in church, but the organist and I had an arrangement.
Pretty cool.
I could bang on the pipes a little bit. Anyway,
I miss my times in the handbell choir in
It's an incredibly powerful feeling.
Yeah, it is. It's a great instrument. Like if you just like music, y'all. But anyway.
Yeah. Anyway, thank you all. Thank you too. Thank everybody in the chat. I appreciate you. If you please do like and subscribe. Tell folks. Shoot me $1 or $2 every now and again. That would really help. I still need to pay my internet bill for this month, so if anybody's got a little something hanging around, my contact information and stuff is in the description. And love you all. Thank you. And I'm gonna hit the magic button here, wherever the heck it is. End stream.
See you next time.
Bye.